Transfer portal. Got some buzz and intel for you, but also some updated rankings. There's even been some movement on this very Sunday afternoon. So let's just start off with talking about how wild this has been. I mean, we've seen a lot of movement. There's still kids in the portal. The transfer portal is transforming college football. But I do want to go to the 24/7 Sports latest transfer portal rankings because there's been some movement here. And if you're getting ready for the season, I don't care if you're betting it, if you just want to be an informed fan, there's been a lot of movement. Maybe you haven't kept up with it. Doesn't matter. Just pay attention right now. This is what you need to know. The number one team in our 24/7 Sports transfer portal rankings right now, USC. They have taken 16 kids this cycle out of the transfer portal. That's good for an 85.12 ranking. They're just ahead of Ole Miss as having the top overall portal class. Now, you know Caleb Williams, the quarterback at Oklahoma, followed Lincoln Riley there. Mario Williams, the wide receiver, ditto. Those are very high-profile additions. Travis Dye, the running back from Oregon, should be high-profile, and he is on the West Coast. I haven't gotten the sense that nationally he moved the needle as much as he should. This is a 1,000-yard rusher. He's a 1,200-yard guy from last year, 6 yards per carry. He is a big-time difference maker. Veteran player. I think he's been here 4 years at Oregon at least. So he goes to USC. Also, Eric Gentry is a linebacker that transferred from Arizona State recently. You got him, Shane Lee, formerly at Alabama. So they've still got a ways to go on roster reconstruction. Lincoln Riley's just been open about this. But, boy, they went a long way in doing it. They went far enough in the transfer portal where they are such a wild card nationally this year. Because you look at what they added and you look at what they inherited and you think, okay, if everything were to go right, which would include Caleb Williams having a superstar season at quarterback and talent like Mario Williams at the wideout position and Travis Dye at running back, if all that went right, like USC could quite literally, phrase of the month, make the playoff. They could also lose 5 games. It's such a wild card team this year. USC, number 1 transfer portal team. The number 2 ranked team in the transfer portal, the Ole Miss Rebels. This has changed even today. So they have added their 15th transfer portal edition. Redundancy there in the sentence. I understand that, but it is live, so we roll on. They've got an 82.05 ranking here. Jalen Robinson's the kid they added today. Most of you don't know who that is. That's fine. That's a 1,000-yard receiver kid from last year at UCF. Going to be dynamite in their system. Have very little doubt about that. Probably more of a slot receiver type. But also, I had to go in there today because they have so many. They've added 15 kids, like I said. Listen to this. So they have several kids rated 4 stars or higher in the transfer portal. But it's not all stacked up at one position. Of the players out of those 15 kids that are rated 4 stars or higher, one of them's a quarterback, one of them's a running back, 2 tight ends, they got a safety, an edge rusher, a linebacker, an offensive tackle, and a corner. So that's some versatility and variety of the 4- and 5-star variety out of the transfer portal. Now, the 5-star is Jackson Dart, the quarterback. And there's going to be a lot said about him, as there should be. I got some feedback from Ole Miss the other day. And Zack Evans is going to be a monster this year. That's a kid that came out of high school, and there were all kind of red flags around his name. And he ended up going to TCU. And I remember vividly thinking to myself, if he doesn't pan out, okay, all this has been validated. But you follow his career, and it hasn't been validated. He has not washed out like a lot of people predicted. Quite the opposite. He's thrived. And now he's gone to Ole Miss, and because of the quarterback transfer market, understandably so, his transfer has been covered up. You mark my words, Jackson Dart or not, Zack Evans is going to be the guy who steals the headlines from this transfer portal class. Jahmyr Gibbs is a big-time get for Alabama at running back. We're going to talk about him in a second. Wouldn't shock me at all if Zack Evans is the best running back in the SEC West this year. And I know what kind of mouthful that is. But I also know what kind of player he is and what he's probably going to be able to do in that system. Zack Evans is going to blow it up this fall. Number 3 team, LSU. LSU took 15 kids as well. Now, this is not a class that's as loaded up in terms of elite talent as maybe Ole Miss or USC, but they had to get quantity here. That roster situation was such that they had to get some quantity. So LSU is at 72.85. That's the rating on this team. Attention's at quarterback. The attention's on Jaden Daniels, as it should be, the transfer from Arizona State. Outside of that, They got some line of scrimmage help here. I'm not saying they didn't, but there aren't a bunch of headline grabbers. There is a lot of quantity that they needed, and it's so imperative that these defensive backs they brought in all hit. They've got to hit on all of them because they are replacing Eli Ricks, who transferred to Alabama. They're replacing McLaughlin, another DB who transferred to Arkansas. They're replacing Derek Stingley, who just went in the NFL draft. They got to hit. They can't afford injury, and they can't afford not to hit on those guys. So keep an eye on the DB position, more so than anything, outside of quarterback in that transfer class. The number 4 team in the transfer portal class right now is Oklahoma. They brought in 12 kids overall. That's good for a 60.06 rating. I know they got 12 here, but I don't know just pound for pound that there's a player that's been more important in the transfer portal this entire cycle, any team, than Dillon Gabriel. Because we did a segment the other day about the most important players, most important quarterbacks, and Dillon Gabriel was one of them, if not the biggest one in the country, because at Texas, if Quinn Ewers just retired from football tomorrow, they have Hudson Card there. At Oklahoma, if Dillon Gabriel doesn't work out, there's a big, big drop-off. I saw they picked up General Booty, which is not anyone in military garb, but rather the actual name of a quarterback that is headed to Norman. General Booty. G-Booty, as I like to call him for short. But Dillon Gabriel's got to get it done now. So I have no reason to believe he won't, but that's a guy, if you look at all these other classes, that's a guy who probably has as much weight on his shoulders as any other transfer out there. Because Oklahoma right now is the odds-on favorite to win the Big 12. And if I were to take the name Dillon Gabriel, just slide his name out of the lineup sheet there, that would not be the case. So there's a lot riding on Dillon Gabriel. And the number 5 team is Alabama. What's different about Alabama? Well, every other team that I've mentioned so far has at least 12 kids in the transfer portal class. Bama's taken 5. But you know who they were? I think you do. Well, you got Jermaine Burton, who was Georgia's best receiver. You've got Jahmyr Gibbs, who may have been the best player in the ACC period at running back. You've got Eli Ricks, best corner in the entire class. You got Tyler Harrell, who was the wide receiver from Louisville. And then you've got Tyler Steen, who is an offensive lineman from Vanderbilt. All these guys are plug-and-plays. They wouldn't take them at Alabama if they weren't. But, man, they got some high-quality players in this transfer portal class. And there's really not much else to say because we've talked about the Bama class so much. It's just noteworthy that they're sitting there all the way up at number 5, and they only took 5 guys. It's just the guys were so good that statistically they rated that high. Some other classes to keep an eye on. South Carolina is at 7. And, of course, you had the Austin Stogner at tight end, Spencer Rattler at quarterback edition there. Keep an eye on them. Texas is at number 8, but I wanted to go just outside the top 10 because there are 2 classes at number 11 and number 12 that bear very, very close watching. Arkansas is at number 11. They made some very, very high-profile additions. I mentioned McLaughlin, the DB from LSU. He's been added there, but also Drew Sanders, former 5-star outside linebacker who has no concern about him. It's just Bama was loaded, so he went to Arkansas, immediate plug-and-play guy. They got big-time wide receiver talent, so they've got guys that are going to be immediate difference makers, and also Nebraska at number 12. Nebraska added a lot of kids, and Nebraska, we talked about them a lot. They added quarterback Casey Thompson, and they've added a lot of other guys that, for all we know, could be the difference in a monumental leap in overall win expectancy this year because they weren't far off last year. It's just they lost a lot of games close. I don't know statistically, I don't know numerically, point for point, game for game, how many points those kids are worth. I just know if they're worth a combined 7, could be the difference in multiple games. So keep an eye on that. That's the latest out of the transfer portal. Really good feature over on 247sports.com right now if you want to check some things out about that.